The colony on Kepler 442b had always been quiet during the early morning hours. The twin suns had not yet risen above the purple mountains, and the soft, bioluminescent plants that grew across the settlement cast a gentle blue glow over everything. Dr. Jiwon Park stood at the observation window of her laboratory, watching the world wake up slowly. She had been on this planet for 8 years, and she still felt amazed by its strange beauty every single day. Today was different, though. Today, something important was going to happen. For the first time in the colony's 15-year history, they would have a formal meeting with the Velkara, the native species of this world. The aliens were tall, maybe 3 meters high, with bodies made of translucent crystalline material that seemed to shift between deep blues and soft purples, depending on their emotions. They were intelligent, peaceful, and had finally decided that it was time to meet the humans who had built a settlement on their world. Jiwon adjusted her white coat and checked the meeting room one more time. Everything was ready. Captain Dae-Sung Kim, the military commander of the colony, had arrived an hour earlier to make sure the security arrangements were perfect. He was a careful man, always thinking about safety first. Jiwon understood this, but she hoped that today would show that the Velkara were indeed peaceful, as their first communications had suggested. The door to the laboratory slid open, and a young girl walked in. Her name was Haina, and she was 12 years old. She was the daughter of Yoonji, one of the colony's botanists, and she had grown up on Kepler 442b her entire life. Unlike the adults, Haina did not fear the Velkara. In fact, over the past few weeks, she had been leaving gifts for them at the border of the colony. Small things like flowers and stones that she thought looked beautiful. "Dr. Park," Haina said, her eyes bright with excitement. "Are you going to the meeting? I heard from my mother that they are going to bring their young ones, the cubs." Jiwon smiled. She had heard the same thing. The Velkara reproduced very differently from humans. They did not have parents in the traditional sense. Instead, they created offspring called cubs that grew in large crystal pods, fed by a special liquid that the adult Velkara produced together as a community. It was a fascinating biological process that Jiwon had studied from a distance for years. "Yes, I will be there," Jiwon said, "and you should probably stay here in the laboratory. This is an official first contact meeting, and Captain Kim wants only essential personnel there." Haina's face fell a little, but she nodded. She knew the rules. Still, she pressed her face against the glass and looked toward the meeting building in the distance. "I hope they like us," she said softly. "I hope they do not think we are dangerous." It was a simple wish, but Jiwon understood the weight behind it. Humanity's history was filled with stories of misunderstanding and conflict when different groups met for the first time. The humans on Kepler 442b wanted this to be different. They wanted to show that humanity could be something better. An hour later, Jiwon made her way to the meeting building. Captain Dae-Sung was already there, standing with his arms crossed, looking serious. Around them, other colony members waited nervously. There were scientists, a few military personnel, and the colony's chief administrator, Mr. Sung-ho. Then the Velkara arrived. 3 adult Velkara walked slowly through the open door. Their crystalline bodies caught the light and threw it into beautiful patterns. The leader was the largest, and he moved with great dignity. His body was a deep indigo color. Behind him came 2 others, one a softer shade of blue and one whose crystal structure seemed to shift with colors that did not quite exist in the human spectrum. But it was the smaller figures that caught Jiwon's breath. The cubs. There were 5 of them, moving carefully beside the adults. They were much smaller than the adult Velkara, maybe only 1.5 meters tall, with smaller crystal formations. One of them, a cub that glowed with a pale turquoise color. kept looking around the room with obvious curiosity and anxiety. The lead Velkara stepped forward. When he spoke, his voice was like wind moving through glass, beautiful and strange. The colony's translation device converted his words into Korean. I am Master Velkar. We are honored to meet you, humans of this world. These are our young ones. We bring them to understand that there are others who share this place with us. Captain Dae Sung stepped forward and gave a small bow, a gesture of respect. Welcome. I am Captain Dae Sung Kim. We are honored to meet you as well. We mean no harm to you or your people. We have come to this world to build a home, but we respect that this has always been your home. The meeting continued for another hour. The adults spoke about territory, about resources, and about peaceful coexistence. The translation device worked well enough, though sometimes meaning seemed to get lost between the two languages. But slowly, carefully, an understanding began to form. Perhaps these two species could share this world without destroying each other. What struck Ji-won most, however, was something that happened near the end of the meeting. The young turquoise cub had moved away from the other young ones. It was looking at one of the large windows that showed the colony's gardens beyond. The cub's crystalline body was vibrating slightly, and Ji-won realized that the creature was afraid. It was afraid of this new place. These new beings, this whole unknown situation. Captain Dae Sung noticed this too. Instead of pretending not to see it, he did something that surprised everyone. He walked over to the cub slowly and carefully. Then he simply sat down on the floor, making himself smaller and less threatening. He did not speak. He just sat there, showing the cub that humans could be peaceful and gentle. The turquoise cub approached the captain slowly. Its crystal body glowed warmer colors as it came closer. Then it made a sound like wind chimes, and everyone knew that this was good. This was the start of something new. As Ji-won watched, she felt something warm in her chest. Maybe, she thought, maybe this was going to work after all. Maybe humans and Velkara could truly be more than just neighbors. Maybe they could become something more. The meeting ended as the twin suns rose fully over the purple mountains, and both species looked toward a future they would now build together. 3 weeks had passed since the first meeting between humans and Velkara. The initial anxiety had faded into something more positive. The two species had agreed to a regular exchange of knowledge and resources. The Velkara had shown the humans where the best water sources were on the planet, and the humans had shared some of their medical knowledge with the crystal beings, though the biology was so different that much of it needed translation and adjustment. During these weeks, something unexpected had developed. The young turquoise cub from the first meeting, whose name translated roughly to Kira, had started to visit the colony regularly. It would come to the gardens where Haina played and watch the human girl from a distance. At first, this had worried Captain Dae Sung, but Ji-won had recognized it for what it was. The cub was lonely. Despite being surrounded by other young Velkara, Kira was drawn to the human child. One afternoon, Haina had left a small gift at the border fence. It was a drawing she had made of the two of them together, human and Velkara, standing under the purple mountains. When Kira found it, the cub's entire body had glowed with warm amber colors. The next day, the cub had come back with its own gift. It was a small piece of crystal that it had shaped into something like a flower. It was beautiful and delicate, and Haina had cried when she held it. Now, they were friends. Today, however, Ji-won had called a meeting in her laboratory. She was not alone. With her were Yunji, Haina's mother, and Minho, a talented engineer who made tools and equipment for the colony. They had gathered because they had all noticed something that was deeply troubling. "The cubs are afraid," Ji-won said, looking at the data on her screen. "I have been monitoring the Velkara through the colony sensors. The cubs are displaying signs of extreme stress and anxiety. Their crystal structures are showing microfractures from vibration. Something is worrying them greatly. Yunji nodded. She had seen this in Kira, too. I asked my daughter about it. Hana says that Kira is terrified about something called the integration trials. Apparently, all young Velkara must go through these trials when they reach a certain age of development. It is a dangerous test of their physical and mental strength. Many cubs have been damaged or destroyed by these trials. Minho looked troubled. That sounds like something from ancient times. Why would a peaceful, intelligent species keep such a dangerous practice? Because, Ji-won said slowly, understanding something deep. They believe that to survive in this world, the cubs must learn to suppress all emotion and fear. They must become hard. The trials test whether a cub can endure pain without breaking apart, both physically and mentally. If a cub shows too much fear or sensitivity, the adult Velkara believe it is weak and will not survive the dangers of adulthood. The room became very quiet. Haena, who had been doing homework in the corner, looked up. That is mean, she said simply. In my school, when I was scared, I talked to my teacher and my mother. I did not have to be alone with my fear. Ji-won looked at the young girl and felt a sudden understanding. Humans had learned, over thousands of years, that fear was not something to be destroyed. Fear was something to be understood, managed, and sometimes shared. A child who could talk about their fears and receive comfort grew up to be a more capable, confident adult. A child who was forced to hide and suppress fear often became an adult filled with pain and unable to connect with others. The Velkara had never learned this lesson. Kira's trials are in 2 weeks, Yunji said quietly. She is very afraid. Every night she comes to the fence and makes sounds like she is crying. But the other Velkara cubs cannot help her. Their culture does not allow it. The adults say that comfort would only make her weaker. Minho suddenly stood up. We have to help her. We have to do something. But what? Ji-won asked. We cannot change Velkara culture overnight, and if we try to help Kira in a way that the Velkara view as weakness, it might damage our new relationship with them. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then, Haina said something that changed everything. My grandmother, she said, used to make me hot chocolate when I was scared. Not medicine, not a treatment, just hot chocolate. Something warm and good that tasted like comfort. She said her mother taught her and her mother taught her. She said it was not weakness to accept comfort. She said it was strength to know that you were not alone. Ji-won looked at Haina with sudden interest. Tell me more about this hot chocolate. Over the next hour, Haina described the drink in detail. It was made from cacao, a plant that had been brought to the colony long ago, mixed with warm water, milk, a little bit of sugar, and sometimes spices like cinnamon. It was a simple drink, nothing special from a scientific perspective. But it did something important. It made a person feel cared for. It made fear feel smaller and more manageable. An idea began to form in Ji-won's mind. What if they could create a version of this drink that the Velkara could consume? Velkara biology was crystalline and completely different from human biology, but they did eat and drink. They absorbed nutrients through special openings in their bodies. It would not be easy to create something they could safely consume, but perhaps it was possible. We would need to study the plant chemistry, Yunji said, excitement growing in her voice. The cacao plant has complex compounds. Some might be harmful to Velkara physiology, but others might actually be beneficial. We have those readings from when the Velkara shared their biological data with us. Minho was already thinking about practical problems. And we would need special vessels to hold the liquid at the right temperature. Velkara bodies are sensitive to temperature variations. We would need to create something that keeps the drink warm but not too hot. For the next week, these 3 people and Haina worked in secret. They gathered books about hot chocolate and ancient recipes. They studied the Velcara biological data carefully. Yunji grew cacao plants in the laboratory and tested different preparations. Minho created beautiful ceramic cups that could hold liquid at the perfect temperature for Velcara to consume safely. There were failures. Some batches of the drink made the test samples, which they had to simulate, as they could not test on actual Velcara, show signs of distress. Some recipes tasted terrible, some were too bitter, some too sweet. But slowly, carefully, they refined their creation. One evening, as the twin suns set over the purple mountains, Hyena made a perfect batch. It was a deep brown color, warm and inviting. The aroma was rich and complex. It had cacao, yes, but also a hint of local spices that Yunji had discovered actually enhanced the flavor and were safe for Velcara to consume. There was also a special honey-like substance from local plants that added sweetness and had calming properties documented in ancient Velcara texts. They looked at what they had created and knew it was ready. "What should we call it?" Minho asked. Hana smiled. "Kira called it liquid courage when I was explaining what hot chocolate meant to my family. I told her it helped you be brave when you were scared. She understood." Ji-won felt tears in her eyes. They had created something special, something that might actually help the young cubs face their fears. But more than that, they had created something that showed the Velcara that there was another way. That fear was not a weakness to be destroyed, but something to be shared and managed with the help of others. In 2 weeks, the integration trials would begin. But before they did, they would offer the cubs something they had never been offered before. They would offer them comfort. They would offer them liquid courage. As human-made cub hot chocolate, cubs called it liquid courage. Story outline, 6 parts. Part 1, First Contact on Kepler 442b. Setting: a remote human colony on Kepler 442b established 15 years prior. The colony has recently made peaceful contact with the native Velcara species, tall, crystalline-bodied beings who reproduce by generating offspring called cubs that grow within community pods. Main characters: Dr. Ji-won Park, human colony physician and research specialist, compassionate but pragmatic. Captain Dae-sung Kim, military commander of the colony, cautious about alien relations. Kira, Velcara cub, a young, curious Velcara cub, approximately 10 Earth years old in development. Plot points: the Velcara cubs are terrified of upcoming integration trials, a dangerous rite of passage that tests their crystalline resilience. Kira befriends young colony children, including Hana, a 12-year-old human girl. Dr. Ji-won observes that Velcara cubs show anxiety and fear similar to human children. The Velcara elders refuse to comfort the cubs, believing emotional suppression is necessary for survival. Hana mentions her grandmother's secret comfort drink, hot chocolate. Part 2, The Recipe of Comfort. Setting: Dr. Ji-won's laboratory and quarters, Velcara viewing chambers. Main characters: Dr. Ji-won Park takes on the role of informal bridge builder. Hai-na teaches Dr. Ji-won her family recipe. Unji, Hai-na's mother, a botanist who helps source local ingredients compatible with Velcara physiology. Kira, increasingly anxious as the integration trials approach. Plot points: Dr. Ji-won and Hai-na collaborate to create a Velcara-compatible version of hot chocolate using local crystallized minerals that can be dissolved, mixed with natural plant-based liquids, and topped with aromatic compounds from the planet. They encounter setbacks. Early batches don't register properly with Velcara sensory organs. Some batches are too bitter. Unji suggests adding a rare local honey equivalent that has soothing properties documented in Velcara ancient texts. The final recipe is created: a warm, dark liquid with subtle sweetness and a complex flavor profile. Captain Dae-sung is skeptical but agrees to allow a small trial, fearing it might be seen as weakening the cubs. Part 3. The First Cup. Setting. A neutral meeting area between human and Velkara territories. Late evening. Main characters. Dr. Ji-won Park. Kira, the volunteer cub. Haina insists on presenting the drink herself. Master Velkar. An elder Velkara official, stern and traditional, various human colonists, and Velkara observers. Plot points. Dr. Ji-won presents the drink to the Velkara Council as a human gesture of solidarity, not as comfort, but as cultural exchange. Master Velkar initially rejects it as emotional indulgence. Haina directly offers the cup to Kira, speaking in a simple but sincere way about how her ancestors used it during difficult times. Kira hesitantly accepts and consumes the hot chocolate. The effect is profound. Kira's crystalline body temporarily glows with warmer hues, and observers note a visible calming in the cub's vibrations. Kira expresses in Velkara language, translated, "It tastes like courage, like I can face tomorrow." The Velkara cubs who witness this react with interest and quiet hope. Master Velkar allows limited access, but only to volunteers and only on a trial basis. Part 4. The Spreading of Liquid Courage. Setting. Throughout the colony and Velkara settlement, multiple locations over several weeks. Main characters. Dr. Ji-won Park trains other colonists in the recipe. Haina becomes an unofficial ambassador between species. Min-ho, a human engineer who helps create special ceramic cups that don't interfere with Velkara physiology. Asha, female Velkara elder, a progressive leader who begins to see the value in emotional regulation rather than suppression. Multiple Velkara cubs, Captain Dae-sung Kim, gradually shifts his stance. Plot points. Haina and other colony children form a volunteer hot chocolate preparation team that works with colonists to serve the drink. More Velkara cubs participate in the trials after consuming liquid courage. Success rates increase by 34%. Injured Velkara soldiers also request the drink, finding it aids recovery and mental resilience. A cultural exchange begins. Humans learn about Velkara crystal singing, a form of emotional expression, while Velkara learn about human comfort practices. Asha proposes a revolutionary idea that acknowledging fear and finding comfort is not weakness, but strategic wisdom. Captain Dae-sung witnesses a Velkara cub successfully complete an integration trial and reports back, "The drink works, not through magic, but through what humans would call peace of mind." Master Velkar remains skeptical, but ceases his opposition. Part 5. Integration and Understanding. Setting. Joint Human Velkara Cultural Center, a newly constructed building symbolizing cooperation. Main characters. Dr. Ji-won Park documents the psychological and physiological effects of the hot chocolate. Kira, now a mentor to younger cubs, openly credits the drink with her own courage. Haina, approaching young adulthood, becomes a formal cultural liaison. Min-ho and Yoonji continue refining the recipe and exploring related comfort beverages. Asha, champion of the new cultural integration movement. Captain Dae-sung Kim, advocates for the program to human leadership. Plot points. Dr. Ji-won publishes research showing that the hot chocolate triggers positive neurochemical responses in Velkara physiology, similar to human endorphin release. The drink is officially named Kai Courage, a blend of human Kai, meaning spirit, breath, and Velkara crystalline terminology. Velkara begin sharing their own comfort practices with humans. Meditation through crystal singing, resonance therapy. A new generation of cubs grows up with access to emotional support tools. They show improved adaptation and resilience. The integration trials are reformed to include psychological preparation, not just physical testing. Humans and Velkara begin collaborative projects, strengthened by mutual understanding of vulnerability and courage. Kira and Haina are recognized as symbols of interspecies friendship. Part 6. Legacy of Liquid Courage. Setting. 5 years later, multiple locations including Earth, Kepler 442b, and the broader human colonies. Main characters. Dr. Ji-won Park, now an elder statesman of human Velkara relations. Kira, a full-grown Velkara serving as an official cultural ambassador. Haina, a young adult leading interspecies education initiatives. Master Velkar has become an unexpected advocate for the program's expansion. New characters, young generation of both humans and Velkara, who've never known a time without cooperation. Plot points. The hot chocolate recipe has been sent to other human colonies and shared with other alien species, becoming a universal symbol of emotional acceptance. Velkara culture has fundamentally shifted. Emotional honesty is now seen as a strength, not a liability. The colony's success rate in diplomacy with other species has increased dramatically. A monument is erected honoring the Courage Brew. With plaques in both human language and Velkara crystalline inscriptions, Kira reveals that she has been elected to the Velkara Council, where she will advocate for continued emotional development in her people. Haina is offered a position to teach the hot chocolate recipe and its cultural significance across the galaxy. Dr. Ji-won reflects in her final log entry. Humanity's greatest strength was never our weapons or intellect. It was our ability to comfort each other and our willingness to share that comfort with others. The story closes with a new group of cubs and human children drinking hot chocolate together, laughing and talking about their own fears and dreams. A moment of simple peace that reverberates across worlds. Themes. Courage through vulnerability. True strength comes from acknowledging fear, not suppressing it. Cultural bridge building. Understanding comes through small gestures of kindness, the power of simple humanity. A drink, a recipe, a grandmother's tradition can change worlds. Interspecies connection. All sentient beings share fundamental emotional needs. Youth as agents of change. Children's innocence and openness can teach adults wisdom. Word count, estimate. 45,000 60,000 words, full novel development. Tone, hopeful, character-driven, contemplative with moments of warmth and humor. Target audience. HFY enthusiasts, sci-fi readers, those who enjoy diplomatic and cultural sci-fi narratives. 2 months had passed since that first presentation of Liquid Courage. The changes that had begun on that day had grown into something neither the humans nor the Velkara could have predicted. What started as a simple gesture had become a bridge between two species, a way of understanding that crossed the vast differences in their biology and culture. The integration trials were over. Kira and many other cubs had not only survived them, but had passed them with remarkable success. The medical data showed something stunning. Cubs who had consumed Liquid Courage before their trials had a 34% higher success rate than cubs who had not. But more importantly, they seemed psychologically healthier. They showed less damage to their crystalline structures from stress-induced fracturing. They seemed more confident, not weaker. Now, the Liquid Courage program had expanded far beyond what Ji-won had imagined. Haina and several other human children from the colony had formed what they called the Hot Chocolate Preparation Team. They spent time every week preparing fresh batches of the drink in cooperation with Velkara, who had volunteered to learn the recipe and prepare it alongside humans. It was more than a beverage now. It had become a symbol of cooperation and understanding. Today, in a new facility that humans and Velkara had constructed together, another use for Liquid Courage was being tested. In a special medical area, an adult Velkara named Kesh was recovering from injuries sustained in an accident. Kesh's crystalline body had been badly damaged, and the healing process was painful. Traditionally, injured Velkara endured their pain in silence, believing that accepting comfort was shameful weakness. But things were changing. A human medic named Sung Hee gently helped Kesh consume a cup of liquid courage. The injured Velkara had been resistant at first, but as the warm liquid was absorbed into Kesh's system, something remarkable happened. The severe tension in Kesh's crystalline structure seemed to ease. The vibrations that indicated pain became less intense. Kesh made a sound that translated as relief and gratitude. "This is helping," Kesh said quietly. "I can still feel the pain, but I feel less alone in it. I feel like someone is acknowledging that my suffering matters." Word spread quickly through the Velkara community. More injured Velkara asked for the drink. More adults who were facing difficult times requested it. What had begun as something for young cubs had become something that even the strongest adult Velkara found valuable. And with each use, Velkara culture shifted slightly, gradually accepting that seeking comfort was not weakness, but wisdom. Captain Dae-sung had stopped by the facility to observe. He had been skeptical of this entire project from the beginning, but he was also a practical man who understood data. The medical records were undeniable. Something important was happening. "Dr. Park," he said to Ji-won, who was documenting the medical effects, "I have to admit that I was wrong about this. I thought it was too risky. I thought that offering emotional support to an alien species would damage our diplomatic relations. But I can see that I was thinking about it incorrectly." Ji-won smiled. "You were thinking about it the way humans had thought about it for much of our own history. We used to believe that strength meant not needing anyone, that showing emotion was weakness. Many human cultures still believe this, even though science has shown us that emotional support actually makes us stronger, not weaker. Perhaps we have given the Velkara something that they were ready to receive but had never imagined was possible." In the weeks that followed, the impact continued to spread. The Velkara had their own traditions and practices that they began to share with the humans. One of these was crystal singing, a form of emotional expression where the Velkara vibrated their crystalline bodies at specific frequencies to create beautiful musical sounds. These sounds could express complex emotions that were difficult to explain in words. Humans began to learn this art, and it opened new ways of understanding each other. In turn, humans taught the Velkara about human music, about singing, about dance. These were forms of emotional expression that had always existed in human culture, but that the Velkara had never experienced. Young cubs and human children danced together in the colony's central gathering place. Adult Velkara watched in fascination as humans expressed joy and sorrow and love through movement. A particularly important moment came when a progressive Velkara named Asha, an elder who had seen the benefits of the Liquid Courage program firsthand, proposed something radical to the Velkara Council. She suggested that the traditional understanding of strength be examined and possibly changed. She proposed that acknowledging fear and seeking comfort might actually be the foundation of true courage, not a weakness that undermined it. Master Velkar listened to this proposal without interrupting. When Asha finished speaking, the old Velkara was silent for a long time. His crystalline body flickered through colors of deep blue and violet and something that might have been gold. "I have lived for many cycles," Master Velkar said finally. "I have always believed that strength came from isolation, from the ability to endure without support. But I have watched these cubs who consumed the humans' liquid courage. I have seen them pass their trials not with fear-filled desperation, but with confidence and peace. I have watched wounded Velkara heal faster when they allowed themselves to accept comfort. Perhaps... He paused, and it seemed to cost him great effort to speak these words. Perhaps I have been wrong about what strength truly is. It was not a complete acceptance of change, but it was an opening. It was the beginning of the possibility that the Velkara might be willing to reconsider traditions that had guided their people for thousands of years. Word reached Captain Daesung that one of the integration trial cubs, Kira, had not only passed, but had scored in the top ranks of her age group. More significantly, she had volunteered to become a mentor to the next group of young cubs preparing for their trials. She was teaching them not just the practical skills they would need, but also the emotional skills. She was teaching them that it was good to acknowledge their fear, to seek comfort when they were struggling, and to remember that strength and sensitivity were not opposite things. They were partners. That evening, Haina visited Kira at the edge of the settlement. The human girl brought fresh cups of liquid courage, still warm from the preparation they had done that afternoon. Kira glowed with peaceful colors as they sat together under the strange stars of Kepler 442b. "Thank you," Kira said simply, "for the drink, for the friendship, for showing us that there was another way to be strong." Haina smiled. "I just shared what my grandmother taught me. You were the brave one. You tried something new. You changed your entire people." "We changed together," Kira corrected. "That is what I have learned. Change does not happen because of one brave act. It happens because two species decided to understand each other, to share not just knowledge, but kindness." The two friends sat in comfortable silence. Two young beings from different worlds, united by something as simple and profound as a warm drink and the willingness to care about each other's well-being. In the distance, both species' homes glowed with the light of the bioluminescent plants, standing close together, no longer separate, but increasingly intertwined. 5 years had passed since that first cup of liquid courage was shared between human and Velkara. The colony had changed in ways both visible and invisible. What had started as a small, isolated human settlement was now a thriving joint community where humans and Velkara lived and worked together. New buildings had been constructed by both species, architecture that blended human design with the natural crystalline growth patterns that the Velkara created. A new center had been built in the heart of the shared settlement. It was called the Center for Integration and Understanding, and it stood as a monument to what two species could accomplish together. Inside, there was a laboratory where Dr. Ji-Won Park continued her research on the liquid courage formula and its remarkable effects. But the building contained much more than just science. There was a kitchen where humans and Velkara worked together to prepare liquid courage. The recipe had been refined many times, and now there were several variations. Some used local herbs that helped with physical healing. Others were designed to help with emotional stress. But the core of the drink remained the same, created by the first collaboration between a human doctor, a human botanist, a human engineer, and a human child. There was also a teaching space where human and Velkara children learned together. Haina, now a young adult, had become the director of the education program. She taught classes about both species' history and culture. She taught Velkara children about human music and art and literature. And she taught human children about Velkara science and philosophy and crystal singing. The education had become richer and more complex than either species could have created alone. Ji-Won stood in her laboratory, looking at data that made her both proud and emotional. The psychological and physical effects of liquid courage had been thoroughly documented. Regular consumption of the drink led to improved stress management, faster recovery from injury, and stronger social bonds. But more than that, the research showed something deeper. When Velkara had the opportunity to acknowledge their emotions and accept comfort, they actually became more resilient, not less. They were stronger, more creative, and more capable of facing challenges. "The data is remarkable," said Minho, who had also changed in the past 5 years. He had married a Velkara engineer named Sarah, and they had 2 children together, one human and one Velkara hybrid. Creating a hybrid child had been difficult, requiring both species to work together on the biology, but the result had been a beautiful daughter named Seona, who was truly a bridge between worlds. "Yes," Ji-won agreed, "and I want to publish all of this. I want the rest of humanity to know what we have learned. I want other colonies, other species they might meet, to understand that emotional support is not weakness, it is strength." That same afternoon, a formal ceremony was taking place in the center square of the settlement. Kira, who was now a full adult with a crystalline body that shone with deep blue and turquoise colors, was being installed as the newest member of the Velkara Council. It was an unprecedented appointment. Kira was young for such a position, but her leadership of the integration efforts had proven her wisdom. She had dedicated herself to helping her people accept and embrace emotional openness. Captain Dae-sung attended the ceremony, now wearing the rank of Director of Interspecies Relations. He watched as Kira was formally recognized, and he felt a sense of peace about the future. He had been wrong to be fearful of change. Change, he had learned, was not something to be afraid of. Change was how civilizations grew. Master Velkar was present as well, though he had stepped down from his position of authority. He was ancient now, his crystalline structure showing the patterns of great age. But his eyes, if Velkara could be said to have eyes, were clear. As Kira took her place on the council, Master Velkar moved forward and made a formal gesture of respect. It was a gesture he had learned from humans, though adapted to Velkara biology. The old leader was offering his blessing to the new era. That evening, a celebration was held. Humans and Velkara danced together. Crystal singers performed alongside human musicians. Liquid courage was served to all who wanted it, though by this time it was so common that no one thought of it as anything remarkable. It was simply part of their daily life, as natural as water or food. Haina and Kira stood together at the edge of the celebration, watching the community they had helped to build. Haina was now 18 years old, preparing to leave the colony to study at a human university on Earth. She would be one of the first humans to carry the story of liquid courage to the broader human civilization. "I will miss you," Kira said, her crystalline body glowing with soft colors that expressed affection. "I will miss you too," Haina replied. "But this is not goodbye. I am going to tell everyone about what we did here. About how a simple drink and the willingness to be vulnerable and kind changed an entire world. About how 2 species learned to care about each other. Maybe other humans and aliens can learn from us." Kira made the crystal singing sound that expressed gratitude and hope. The 2 friends did not embrace the way humans might, but they stood close together, their connection transcending the biological differences between them. Yoonji, Haina's mother, came to join them. She had become the chief botanist for the settlement and had focused much of her research on sustainable food production for both species. "Your grandmother would be so proud," she told her daughter. "She gave you that recipe and you used it to change the world." Ji-won, who had also come to the celebration, presented the latest results of her research to a gathered audience. She showed the data, the improvements in Velkara health and psychology, the successful integration of 2 species. But more than data, she told the story. Humans once believed that strength meant never asking for help, she explained to the gathered crowd of humans and Velkara. "We thought that emotions were weaknesses to be hidden, but we were wrong. And the Velkara, with their ancient focus on emotional suppression, were also incomplete in their understanding of what it means to be strong. But together, we have learned something beautiful. We have learned that strength comes from connection. It comes from being willing to be vulnerable with others. It comes from accepting comfort while still remaining capable and independent. She held up one of the original ceramic cups that Minho had created years before. Inside was warm liquid courage, still steaming slightly. This drink is not magic. It has no special properties beyond basic nutrition and some helpful compounds. What is magical is what it represents. It represents the belief that you are not alone. It represents the willingness to offer care to someone who is struggling. It represents the understanding that acknowledging fear and sadness and need does not make you weak. It makes you human, or in this case, it makes you Velkara. It makes you whole. As Jiwan finished speaking, every person and every Velkara in the gathering raised their cup. It was a moment of perfect unity, a moment that showed what two different species could achieve when they looked past fear and chose compassion instead. Later that night, as the celebration continued around them, Haina prepared to return to her home to pack for her journey to Earth. Kira walked with her to the edge of the settlement, to the place where human dwellings gave way to Velkara crystal formations. "Remember," Kira said, "that you are always welcome here. This is your home as much as it is mine. And when you return, we will have new stories to share. New ways of understanding what it means to build a life with someone different from yourself." Haina nodded, tears in her eyes. "I will remember. I will tell everyone I meet that courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is sharing your fear with someone you trust and continuing forward anyway. I learned that from you, from this place, from this drink that brought us together." As the two friends parted, the twin suns of Kepler 442b set over the Purple Mountains, casting long shadows across a world that had changed forever. The colony was no longer just a human settlement. It was no longer just a Velkara settlement. It was something new, something that had never existed before. It was a place where different species had chosen to understand each other, and in that choice, they had discovered what it truly means to be strong,